Hello, today I will tell you what are variables, what is a type of variable, what type of variables you can create. So a variable is a container that you can use to store information, data, like for example, numbers, characters, and other things like that. So variables are looking like that, right? A container that you can name and you can put something inside. And well, the truth is that it looks more like that. You have got a RAM, which is random access memory. Yes, that's why you need RAM. You want to reserve something from your random access memory, right? And when you do it, you can store there, for example, numbers, characters, or floating numbers. So numbers like that. And how to do it, how to give an instruction to your computer to reserve something from the random access memory. In order to do it, you type something like that in the main method. Int a, for example. So I have just reserved in the random access memory a place for numbers, for integers. Int stands for integer, right? Which is a number. And now I can store there a number. How to assign there a number, how to change the value there, right? In order to do it, we type the equal sign and then we say what we want to assign there. So for example, 10. So right now we reserved in our random access memory, because this is an integer is saving 33 bits, which is 4 bytes of your memory. So yeah, it will take 4 more bytes. Your program will take 4 more bytes when you click play. And well, you assign there 10, right? This assigning is called initialization. When you assign a value to variable the first time. So you can later, of course, change this value. Or of course, you can also send it to the output using the, for example, system out print line. This shortcut that I've just used is when you type the cout and you click tab, as you can see, then you don't need to type all this thing again because of the NetBeans IDE. So I've just sent 10 on the output. As you can see, it's working fine. And of course, you can change this value anytime. So you can change it to, for example, 15. And as you can see, now it's 15. So that's how you change a value. Well, variables are called like that because they are able to vary, which means that they are able to change, right? And we have just changed the value of the variable like here, which can store, of course, only integers, which are numbers. So we have to remember to be careful to not set something like that, right? Because this is called string, which is sequence of characters. You cannot store characters inside different container that has got the wrong type, okay? So we need to learn about all possible types that we can use. So if we wanted to store here something like, for example, string, we need to type string. Then, as you can see, we can easily store something like that. So, for example, my name, right? And of course, as you have probably noticed, I can't assign to a string a number, right? You can't change the value to the different type value. So when I play it, as you can see, here is my name. You can of course create, and you should name it a bit better. So for example, name, and now my surname, right? And now we can do something like name plus surname. Plus is used to connect two strings. And as you can see now, it's Arkadiusz Włodarczyk. If you want to add a space, you're just gonna do something like that, right? Arkadiusz Włodarczyk. You've just added a space here, right? using these quote signs. So that's a string. We need to do something in comment. Let's create it. Let's describe what we have just learned. So there are integer types like the int, and it's 33 bytes. Let's copy it here from here. And well, you can store there from -2 to the power of 31 to 2 to the power of 31 minus 1. Well, we could go into this a bit deeper. You just need to know that you can store values from that range to another range, right? So when you do something like int a, you cannot assign here something like that, because this say, hey, you know, this number is just too large, okay? It's too big, you cannot do it. But hey, what if I wanted to assign here something big? Because, you know, sometimes you want to do some scientific stuff. Then you're gonna use, for example, long. Long is 64 bits, and you can store there numbers from -2 to 63 to the power of 63 to 2 to the power of 63 minus 1. And when you do something like that, as you can see, now it doesn't work still, but it's because by default any number looking like that is integer. If you want to change it to the long, you need to do something like that. You need to type at the end L. Let's do it with the big letters so we can see it, right? And now, when we get it to the output, as you can see, it's working. If we did it that way, it's not gonna work. If we did it, for example, that way, it's also not gonna work, okay? So you need to add this L at the end to say that you know what you are doing. You want the big number here, okay? And well, what other integer types do we have? We have got some short one, like for example byte, which is 8 bits. Byte is really 8 bits, so it's nothing surprising. This is the smallest amount of information you can store. 1 bit is the smallest information you can store in your computer, which is 0 or 1, right? And the range is from -128 to 127. So you're gonna use a byte when you don't want to store big numbers like that. You want to store just very small numbers, and you don't want to use too much space in your memory, right? You're going to save your memory. You can also use the short integer, which is 16 bits, and you can store there from 32,078 minus 32,768 to 33,767. So you can do something like that, right? And you can store there just a bit bigger number between this and this. Okay, so these are integer types, and now character types. You can use the character type to store a character. So for example, let's create a character, and let's assign here a character like A. And let's get it to the output like that. And as you can see, we can see a character here. You can store here only one character. We cannot do something like that, right? If you want to do something like that, you have to use the string, which can store sequence of characters. And look at the difference here. Here we have double quotes, right? Here we have an apostrophe, which is single quote. And if you want to create a string, you need to use that one. If you want to create a character, single character, you have to use the apostrophe single quote, right? That's very important to know. So of course there is a string which can store many characters, right? So the one that we have learned here, like that. there are two more types, which are called floating numbers, which allows you to store numbers with a fraction. So like, for example, that, right? In order to do it, we should use the type that is called float or double. So float is single precision, which means you can lose precision here. And double is double precision, which means that it's better to use double precision. The truth is that right now almost nobody is using the float because it might give you more headaches than good things. Okay, this has got 33 bits, this is 64 bits, and this one can store 1.4 multiplied by 10 to the power of minus 44, 5, so the fraction is very small. You can have 45 zeros, right, after the dot, and to 3.4 multiplied by 10 to the power of 138. So it's a very big number, and here is even bigger because you can store here 4.9 to the power of, wow, minus 323, so it's very big, and here 308. But as I said earlier, do not use float unless you want to store very small number and you don't want to almost do any operation, okay? And you really want to save the random access memory, which we have tons of it, right? Right now it's so big that we shouldn't most time care about something like that. But if you do not need to do any preparation, you need to store a number that is, that doesn't have many things after the dot, then, well, yeah, you can use the float. But there is a small problem. When you create the float, for example, number, right, and you assign here something like that, you will notice that, hey, here is something wrong. You have to cast it to float. What the hell? What's going on? When we do something like that, as you can see, the program is not working. So float is not working at all. When we create a double, it's working fine, right? But double, well, any number that has got a fraction, that has got that, is automatically adding here something like D, right? Which stands for double. Okay, now it's working fine, as you can see still. For float, you need to just use here an F. Why? Because, some people could make this mistake to create float number, not knowing that it's single precision, and it can create for him problems that would be very hard to solve, okay? So that's why instead of float, it's better to use just double, okay? Unless you don't do an operation on these numbers. It's also good to know that when you are creating variables, you can create many at once. So you can create something like int, and then you can do something like C, D, E, F, G, right? Without any problems. It's a good idea to add here spaces so it looks a bit better. And of course you can initialize one of them, for example, like that, and it's gonna work fine, right? Oh, of course you cannot use the variable that is uninitialized, which means that it doesn't have a value. So you need to do something like that. Okay, that's all in that lesson. Thank you very much.